Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. We were just talking a little bit about topics to go through, and I was just saying about a client call I had the other night, and we went through emotional eating. So I think it's a good topic to touch on, because in the world we live in, I think there's more emotional eating than we actually think.
My idea, really thinking of it straight away, I don't think there's probably anyone who can identify or not identify at some level of eating emotionally.
Yeah, I think from like growing up and starting off with people like saying, oh, there's a whole tub of ice cream and the Bridget Jones side of things and all that sort of stuff, and just it's just got more and more prevalent of actually having so much emotional eating out there.
Yeah, and also we tap into that, or we get bombarded with that because advertising and marketing and that feeds on that. But I think also we have moved away from that food is fuel.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned a bit with our patients, and especially with kids who, we kind of relay that to if they've got a cat or a puppy or so, what do you give it, and then you talk about different, food choices we have, and would you give your puppy that? And they quite quickly will say no, they'll make them sick. But we don't apply that same rule to us, because food is not fuel. Mm-hmm. Food comes with social interaction, it comes with taste, it comes with what do I feel like. There's so many elements to it. So I don't think anyone really is immune to being not emotionally connected with food.
I think it's massive, and I've had my own problems with like disordered eating, and then going massively down the emotional eating route. And that was one of the things which I was speaking to this lady about it, because she was finding she'd have an argument with her husband, or they'd be stressed with the kids, stressed with business, and she'd just eat a lot of rubbish without even thinking of it, and then think she was full and eat some more.
Yeah.
And it was stressing her out even more.
I think the stress one is a really tough one, because there's a lot of neurophysiology going on which most people don't understand or not really conscious about. So that classic kind of I just want to eat rubbish, it's actually, it's not that strong that we don't have the willpower, or that it's totally an emotional knee-jerk reaction. There's strong neurophysiology behind it, of the body wanting and craving certain foods and things, because we are still behaving like animals. We still perceive that argument with a significant other is still physiologically processed the same as if we are under threat of an animal, survival. So our food choices change. And so I think sometimes we've got to drop a bit of the guilt element when we see that happen. I think it's really worthwhile that then we reflect and see and identify that patterns happen. The thing that frustrates me a little bit more is that subliminal kind of marketing element of, the classic of, without mentioning the name, but, take a break. Have a,
once you pop, you can't stop.
Yeah, there's all sorts of slogans and stuff. So although we can identify, yes, that's marketing, we don't really realize how powerful that is. Because if it wasn't that powerful, they wouldn't keep using the slogans.
Exactly. And the slogans are there to actually allow us to have those subliminal messages to actually make us eat more. So like food is business. And they're trying to make more money. And fair enough, that's what they're doing.
Well, and there's competition out there. If we're both producing the same kind of chocolate bar, I want people to buy mine over yours. So how the marketers and the promoters, how can I shift, even just subtly, the choice towards what's associated with my product. So if my product is going to give you, a feel-good factor and a reward element or some, then I'm going to highlight that.
That's one of the big things there. But what we were speaking about, going back to the emotional eating and my own side of things, is that the situation we're in when we start emotional eating is usually we then want to feel safe. And then we go back to something which has happened years ago, and we talk about mindset and the connection psychologically. And I had all these fall-offs where it would be on a Saturday, and I've spoken about it before. It was like Pavlov's dog when Match of the Day theme came on, I'd want to eat. Because when I was younger, my dad would come home for the weekend, I'd be around my nan's, would eat nan's cooking, comfort food, would have loads of sweets, loads of crisps, and then we'd watch Match of the Day. We'd have like 3-4 bags of crisps, and it was just because it was a treat around your nan's. And then it used to always find that when I felt threatened, when I felt stressed, when I felt overworked, overwhelmed, I would turn to food. And I had to really dive into that connection. And a lot of people self-sabotage in the ways where they want to feel that connection they had. And my dad passing away when I was 15, I wanted that connection again. And I wouldn't ever physically get that connection with him, so I would emotionally eat. And a lot of people, and I was speaking to this lady about it, and she had the same situation with her mum. And there was also, one of my mentor was telling me about one of their clients. And I believe it was her husband died in a car crash, and he loved these certain biscuits, and she found herself emotionally eating whole packets of these biscuits, and then she didn't realise it until she actually looked at it and was like, oh wow, they're his favourite biscuits. It was craving that connection with him.
And a lot of the classic with the emotional eating is that it's what's the word? You don't get satisfaction. You will eat, as you say, you eat a whole packet.
Yeah, and then you want more.
Yeah,
and even
and it's a different to a physiological craving element. That gives you a feel good factor, but it's not really replacing the underlying need.
Exactly, and there was also cases where I've said to people, don't have food in the house that you would find a trigger food, shall we say, but I've had times in the past where I would have that trigger food out of the house and I wanted it, so I'd go and get it. And if I was going through an emotional eating bout, it wasn't a case of the answer is not have that food in. It was, well, I have to sort this out psychologically and find out what that connection is I was craving.
But doesn't that also have to start with identifying, so you're picking up the pattern.
Yep.
So a lot of people out there who will emotionally eat, but they're not really even on a conscious level at that point where they've seen the behaviour, they've seen the pattern. Or they're begrudging themselves that they look at it as from a willpower element. But you've got to get to enlightenment, you've got to see the pattern for what it is
see it
first.
before you can change.
Yeah.
But some people do have a trigger food, which essentially a trigger food is what's going to throw their blood glucose levels all over the place, which is going to mean they crave more. Yeah. And they love that sweetness, they love the sugar, they love whatever the savoury side of things, whatever it is of it. But that's the thing that they crave because it's throwing their blood sugar levels all over the place. But some people have triggers which are going to be environmental, which then just make them crave things that they maybe were missing from their childhood, or they had in their childhood.
I can relate to that. One of my best kind of reward foods as a kid when we were in primary school was to go to the tuck shop, and I can still picture, and I still can have an emotional connection, the sausage rolls that were in our tuck shop. I've never tasted sausage rolls better than that ever since. But it's very easy to associate that with the warmth and the comfort of what a sausage roll is. So you can very easily get hooked into identifying or association with different foods being associated with different rewards or pleasurable experiences in the past.
But even things where...
But does that apply also then to alcohol?
Yep, massively.
Because you're looking also is that these are giving you, they're pumping serotonin and dopamine and that, so you start getting I'm sure most people would have identified when we're talking foods, thinking of stuff that we're eating, but alcohol is probably a macronutrient. Alcohol is probably the most significant one, which is going to play with
it's
all
the
those
most significant
neurotransmitters.
One which it plays with all the neurotransmitters. It will play with your dopamine, your epinephrine, your norepinephrine, but alcohol's the one which people justify more than any other.
Well, it's a little bit more socially acceptable.
People go out socially to drink, and it's the one where people will have one or two to wind down without realising the impact it has on their sleep. Yeah. Oh, I can sleep better when I have alcohol. Well, you sleep, but not better. It's going to be disruptive sleep. But then, as we've said before in the alcohol podcast, is that you have 1, 2, 3 throughout the week, and then you have half a bottle of Saturday's lunch, half a bottle of Sunday's lunch, you binge drink it.
Well, and also it then throws out, as we said,
Turned into a ghost, I think, from this.
yeah, don't complain. It's sun. With the daylight hours are shrinking.
I'm not this. I've got a little bit of a tan. There we are.
you're either in or out. So what we're saying, yeah. So alcohol then throws out the sugar levels. So the next day we feel a bit hungover. So we have poorer food choices and all sorts. So what's the key with emotional eating? Number one, identify it.
Awareness is the first part, and then really looking into. I don't feel it's as simple as we have a lot of people out there that are trainers that are giving nutrition advice, rather than, and we've spoken about this before, that a personal trainer is there for you to go to the gym, and this is a whole different subject, and train you in that session safely and be very good at that. But a lot of people will turn to a trainer to say, what should I eat? Ask for a meal plan, which then can have even worse behaviours. But I think it's speaking to someone deep down on the level of who can actually ask the right questions as to why you're having these cravings.
That's exactly what I was going to hint on. Is there's a very easily you can spend a lot of time whizzing around the element of what's going on, when are you eating, take chocolates out of the house, do this, do that, and focus on what's going on, the behaviour. Whereas that's important. There's strategies to put in place for that. But the big one is also asking is why. Why do we? And sometimes that's not even obvious. They don't really know. We use a lovely technique called neuro-emotional technique, so NET, which looks for goes back and retraces kind of life experiences. So sometimes our behaviours are triggered from unprocessed emotions from left field. We wouldn't even associate. Our conscious brain says it must be because of this, it must be because that my pet hamster died around, and then you go back, and sometimes there's some really significant shifts that have happened in childhood or how we've processed emotions which have left chinks, or we stuck, and we don't realise that we've created a link. Thanks very much for joining us in this week's podcast. This is the end of part 1. Join us next week as we continue this discussion in part 2.